All right, David, we're
So now,
back. Go ahead.
so now we've got in India people like Krishna, Buddha, the list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we have a look at the word Buddha,
Mm-hmm.
in German, how they
Mm-hmm.
write it in German,
Okay.
it just turns into the word messenger.
Okay.
Yes. And the strange thing is, yeah, we can see that there must have been an original religion worldwide when
Mm-hmm.
we look at the ancestry. Yes. And for example, in Arabic, you can look up the word Buddha. Wait, let me just find the word Buddha in Arabic basically means servant of God or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it comes from the word. Here they've spelt it in English. It means somebody who does worship to God or the worshippers. Yes, in modern German. Yes, what they did is in the 19th century when they modified the language from the original, it must have had something to do with God or service or worshipping God. So when we go through Indian history, now what we're going to find, it's just 100 years ago. So now here we have, um, you could read this. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Raja Ravi Varma was one of the few artists who attained professional success during his lifetime. For generally, it is opined that artists achieve great fame after their demise. It was the repeated demand for copies of his paintings which led to the suggestion by Diwan Shur Tanjavur Madhava Rao that Ravi Varma sent some of his paintings to Europe to have them olographed. Sir Madhava prophesied that doing so would not only extend Varma's reputation, but would also do a great service to the country. Both these prophecies would come true in ample measure. The brother of Raja Ravi Varma, Raja Varma, would commence the logistic process of the establishment of the press by deputing uh, uh, Abdullah Hussein, who traveled to Germany and engaged the services of Fritz Schellscher to help set up and run the press. The Ravi Varma Fine Art Lithographic Press was set up in Gaum, Bombay, and commenced its operations. The first chromolithograph, birth of Shakuntala, also bears the spelling Shankuntala, was launched in July 1894.
Okay. Let's get down to the basics. It sounds hard to interpret what they're saying, but
Mm-hmm.
basically, there's a printing company that
Okay.
appears in Bombay, in
Mm-hmm.
India. Yes, and it's called the Ravi Varma Press.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ravi Varma Press, um, his brother was involved, and you can see from the name Abdul Hussein or
Mm-hmm.
Abdullah Hussein was involved. Muslims and Hindus, and
Mm-hmm.
they had to go to Germany to start printing.
Mm-hmm.
And what they were doing was printing copies of his paintings or similar things or artworks. Yes, and it was they saying it was the idea of Sir Tanjavur Madhavar Rao.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, notice a British colonial agent. Yes, and
Mm-hmm.
he was the brother of the Raja. Yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
Raja basically means prince.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So what they were doing is I'm printing these things. Now we will go through what they were printing. This is actually very, very shocking. It actually destroys, unfortunately, destroys Hinduism and Buddhism. And
Mm-hmm.
as we saw before, they're making statues and taking them on trolleys, trolley carts or whatever, pulled on horses.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yes, what they did in September 1894, the chromolithographs of the goddess Lakshmi and Saraswati were launched. Basically, they're printing them.
Mm-hmm.
The image in this frame is a later reprint of the chromolithograph first launched in 1894. The Lakshmi and Rara, you could read this, the next part.
Yes. Let's see. It says in September 1894, the chromolithographs of goddesses Lakshmi and Saraswati were launched. The image in this frame is a later reprint of the chromolithograph first launched in 1894. The Lakshmi and Saraswati chromolithographs were revolutionary for their time. It must be remembered that in 1894, access to religious methods and places of worship were severely restricted to certain classes of society. The process of opening temples to the masses commenced only in the 1930s and was substantially set in motion by the temple entry proclamation of Travancore in 1936. The Lakshmi and Saraswati chromolithographs reached every religious injunction and restriction by making their way into every Hindu home, thereby democratically offering Hindus across all classes and castes access to uniform religious imagery.
Okay, let's say this in simple words. Yes, I'll make it simple for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
In India, nobody was a Hindu.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was going there. They are telling us that these temples were there, which we can see are not even temples.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and there's a few rich guys. Yeah, 1% of the public. Nobody's
Mm-hmm.
allowed to go there. Nobody's going to the temples until the 1930s. It increased.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when they made even the proclamation of Travancore, even that history is a forgery. So what they did was they started printing all these pictures of Hindu gods. Nobody knew these Hindu gods. Nobody knew what they looked like. But now you've got these village people who are half naked.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, very poor people who can see what these gods look like. And so they started seeing and they knew who Lakshmi was and Saraswati. Yes, even today in the villages, yeah, you've been there yourself. You've seen it. Many of the villagers don't know what Hinduism is. Yes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, they don't even know what modern Islam is either. They don't know any of these things. In the Thar deserts and other places in what they call Hindustan, in many of these villages, they didn't know anything. They've never heard of Hinduism. The people, yeah, most of them were naked until the clothes, the cotton clothes that were made in factories. In Mumbai, there was factories, and there was factories throughout Europe and industrial centers that were controlled by Europeans. These people didn't know. Have a look at these pictures. They don't know what day it is. When I
Mm-hmm.
say they don't know what day it is, that's an English saying, they don't know. So
Mm-hmm.
suddenly they got these pictures, postcard size, very small size, saying, hey, this is a picture of God and other things. Yeah,
Yep.
or
Mm-hmm.
uh, or your ancestors and other things. Or before that, yeah, that's when the picture spread. Then at the same time, so as you noticed, it was German companies, British companies, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
printing companies that are printing these things, and they've got these people. They're giving out these things and they're taking these statues everywhere and they're telling them this is Lakshmi, this is Krishna, this is Buddha.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
people didn't know anything. They had no idea what the hell was going on. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
have Hinduism. It didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't exist. It slowly started spreading after the 19th century. They
Mm-hmm.
wrote the Vedas, then they were slowly teaching it to a few percent, less than 10% of the population in schools.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Western European schools. They were teaching Christianity and they were teaching Islam also in India.
Mm-hmm.
Modern Islam, I'm talking about with the Hadith history. Well,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so they say the Travancore king or the prince. Yeah, the British didn't totally rule India. That's a lie. They ruled some of the states and the other states, they influenced them. Yes. So the king, he's called Chaitira Tirunal, made a
Mm-hmm.
public declaration which made a shock, saying it was historical in Kerala in the south.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, as if the sun rose at midnight. Yes, suppressed people's wings to fly. Yes, no one should be denied the peace and calmness of the Hindu religion
Mm-hmm.
due to his or her birth. Or nobody was a Hindu. They suddenly said, hey, you can all become Hindus. From today, everybody is free to enter any temple. It's
Mm-hmm.
because many of these temples didn't exist. They started opening them. There were businesses. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Same like One day I'll have to go through it. They did the same thing of these so-called evangelical churches throughout the United States
Hmm.
in the late 19th century and early 20th century. It's a joke. Nobody was going to temples. People didn't go. They didn't exist. There's no statues. There's no images of all these gods. What do you say now? We
Yeah.
can't find Hinduism.
Mm.
It doesn't exist. It's
Hmm.
all a total scam and a lie. Hinduism and Buddhism, I'm very sorry. Unfortunately, this is the history. So before 1936, you could read this.
Before 1936, lower caste people were not allowed to enter the temple. Many of them were barred from even walking on the roads to the temple. It was not surprising in a time when a lower caste people were punished if the shadows of the upper caste people fell upon them. Until the last of the 18th century, people were accustomed to such discrimination and rarely felt anything wrong with it. The lower class people were constantly taught that they were not worth living and their birth was itself evil. Due to the social
Hey,
exposure, yes,
okay. Yeah,
yes.
just stop there for a minute.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, that is why when Fomenko points out the arrival of this man called the Prophet Muhammad,
Hmm.
yes, he overturned turned the old world order.
Hmm.
Fomenko and Nosovsky show it. And
Hmm.
they got rid of slavery. When the Quran said, hey, freeing these people, that's what righteousness is. But basically, you know, everywhere in the world, the upper class is a minority, the
Hmm.
rich class. The
Hmm.
majority is the lower class.
Yep.
They're not going to temples. And what roads are we talking about? You don't seem to understand. Take another look at what India looks like at the time.
Hmm.
People are living in the countryside. They're half naked. It's very unfortunate. Yes,
Hmm.
they're naked. And the thing is, there are no roads. The roads are there for only 10% of the people or less.
Yep.
Yes, so
Hmm.
they're not allowed in these cities. They're not allowed anywhere. These people have no education, basically no religion, nothing whatsoever.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
there was another civilization before them, and we know that another civilization was there. We can see it because we find thousands, not one or two, thousands of buildings that are blown up throughout India, and we don't know what the civilization was.
Hmm.
Yes, and they're just telling us, oh, it was some ancient Muslim civilization or
Hmm.
something. It's just a forged history. So we can't find Hinduism. It doesn't exist. I'm sorry. Yeah, the people I can't say they can't read and write. They don't know any Sanskrit. There's no Hinduism. There's nothing there whatsoever. They're not allowed in these places where the wealthy 4 or 5% lived. You
Hmm.
see, they don't go to temples. There's no pictures. There's no statues. There's nothing. They're just doing farming. Yes, they're
Hmm.
just doing farming. And if they knew any history or anything, yes, in many of the villages, not all of them, in many of the villages, there was something, a movement started in the 19th century to
Hmm.
memorize the Quran. Yes, that the Quran, I could see that if we look at this as a global civilization, that it came from the last civilization, but they started memorizing it. So
Hmm.
apart from that, we can't find any type of civilization there whatsoever 100 years ago. That the people were basically slaves. There's nothing else, nothing going on,
Hmm.
nothing going on. There's no Hinduism, nothing. I can't find it for 90% of the people 150 years ago. Can
Hmm.
you find it?
I cannot know.
Do they look like they've got statues in their houses or pictures? They've got paper. Do they even know?
No.
Yes. So what happened is that the industrial revolution was going on. They're
Hmm.
building factories. Yes, and
Hmm.
cities are growing bigger. So now some of these people are coming. So they open colonial schools, Hinduism, modern Islam, modern Christianity, and everything. So now these people they want to see what the temples are.
Hmm.
Yes,
Hmm.
or whatever, because they were told that there were temples. Yes. So many of them just mysteriously happen to be like saints or graves. Yeah. For the Islamic places, they said this was an ancient saint. Yeah.
Hmm.
For the Hindu places, they said this was an ancient saint, but he's a god.
Hmm.
You see?
Hmm.
Yes. So the majority of the people never went. And what one thing that you will notice is that these temples, how could they be a temple? If you read this carefully, you could read read this part here.
All right. Well, what was the first temple entry movement in India? The temple entry movement of 1927 was started by Bhimrao Ambedkar, was a movement to allow lower caste people to enter temples. Its result led to people of lower caste being allowed to enter temples and also use and draw water from temple wells.
Wow. Now, today, 90% of all the temples of India were built in the 20th century. At
Mm-hmm.
that time, the 10% of the temples are some of these old buildings that are half blown up that they refurbished.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the thing is, they had some facility or something whereby in the center these that they had some massive water well, same like what they call in the churches the baptism fonts,
Mm-hmm.
that they were connected to water. So these buildings had some huge underground water reserves or something. They were not water wells.
Mm-hmm.
So these buildings were something else. And even this person, yes, Bimrao Ramji, is he called Ramji? Yeah, Ramji Ambedkar. Yes, here he is. Yeah. So let's go through his history. He was alive in the 20th century. He was a politician.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and he drafted the Constitution of India. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
in the 1940s. Yeah, and the thing is, so the Hindu religion basically it turned into a religion as these people went into the temples, and as these European and Western companies came, and they were printing, yeah, with Muslims involved and Hindus and Christians, anybody who wanted money, print these papers, pictures, make these gods and all these things, statues, and they were selling them, so that you could put it in your house or carry it or as a necklace or something. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
then things like that. But what did this man have to say? You could just read the title.
It says, "I will not die as a person who calls himself a Hindu."
There you go. That basically says it. Yes, it's because, and if you read through his things, he basically says it's a fraud. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a big joke. Yeah, so this man, he wrote the Constitution and things like that. And he said that all these people, they should be allowed to go anywhere, walk on the
Mm-hmm.
roads. They should be allowed to get water from the wells. It wasn't that it was about that they could go to the temples. They've modified the history a little already, but the main thing is it was about freedom and equality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
and many of these places weren't temples, and the history is a lie. How do we know? Here is the history. You could read this.
Yes, on 19 March 1940, Dr. Ambedkar arranged a rally and public conference in Mahad to recollect 14th Mahad Satyagraha Day as Empowerment Day. On this day,
There you go. That's
y-
basically it.
okay.
Yeah. So to remember this movement,
Hmm.
on 19th of March 1940, um, that was the day that he said that we're going to create or recollect the Empowerment Day, the empowerment of the people,
Hmm.
that the people become equal, basically.
Hmm.
Yes. And the thing is, that's when, yeah, of course, there was the fraud of the Islamic history, and it's the same fraud that they're saying just 3 days before, like 3 days and 3 nights, Jesus Christ. The All India Muslim Leagues had their meeting of at least 32, yes, including one more, I forgot, which makes 33, 19 to 33 of whatever, and there was the massacre or something, the mathematics. They've modified the history, but something big happened, and basically the 19th of March, the 19th. Yeah.
Hmm.
To
Hmm.
understand to understand the 19 more, to make it clear, yeah, people will have to read my book, Secrets of Kabbalah, and to understand the 33, because that's the highest degree. Yes.
Hmm.
And if you don't understand the 33, you're never going to understand sacred geometry. That's in my book, 33 degrees. So the thing is, and the book 33 degrees, it goes a bit further. It's a book that goes through the symbolism in Hinduism, especially, and other religions, and many of the other things that they used sacred geometry. Yes, the sacred geometry to invent it. And
Hmm.
this sacred geometry is actually used in the architecture and the construction of the old world buildings. Now, once you understand the architects and the construction,
Mhm.
yes, and then you understand just simple mathematics and
Mhm.
sacred geometry, then you can figure out what is the function of humans. Same like there is a function of the sun, the moon has a function. And in sacred geometry, these prophets or professors, they pointed out simple things. Your nose is there to smell,
Mhm.
yes, and to breathe. Your ears are there to hear things. So that's sacred geometry. Your eyes are there to
Mhm.
see things. I mean, your eyes cannot drink water.
Mhm.
So once you understand the 33rd degree, once you understand the secrets of Kabbalah, you understand the 19.
Mhm.
Once you understand the 33rd degree, yes, you're ready to understand this sacred geometry. And once you understand this sacred geometry, yes, then you've figured out, yes, what are the universal principles, yes, which are the guidelines to show you so that you could understand what is the purpose of life. Like,
Mhm.
what is the purpose of your ear? It's to hear things. Your ears are not there so that you could eat food with it.
Mhm.
Sorry. Yeah,
Mhm.
same like you've got sexual organs there, and you've got you eat food, it goes in one way, and then you've
Mhm.
got one part of the body so that food can go out. So we know these functions because so we could see it. This is what is called sacred science.
Mhm.
Yes. So now, of course, yeah, you could see there's something wrong with the history of India. Yes. In one place, it says on the 19th. Yes. And here, what date does it say?
Let's see. 20th March,
The Mahat
1927.
Satyagraha,
Maha.
20th of March.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it says 20th of March for that
Yeah.
event.
Mhm.
Yes. So that's why you know that they're playing games and that they're slowly changing the history, or they
Mhm.
make sure that you're confused. Because
Mhm.
then when you go into the details, they control Wikipedia, even though
Mhm.
many people could add their things, but the main pages for the main histories, they control it. Here, when you open the page, when it goes deeper, what date does it say here for the Mahat Satyagraha?
19th March,
Yeah.
1940.
So
Yeah.
you see, yes, they're playing games. So now, like I pointed out, some people are going to say, "Oh no, he did it because he wanted people to go to the temples." No, he himself said, "No way am I going to call myself Hindu." You could read out what he said.
I didn't launch the temple entry movement because I wanted the depressed classes to become worshippers of idols, which they were prevented from worshiping, or because I believed temple entry would make them equal members in and an integral part of the Hindu society.
Yes, simple. So now
Hmm.
let's analyze what he said, because some people will go through that and they'll think I didn't understand it. He
Okay.
said, I didn't do this because I wanted the common people to worship this religion,
Mm-hmm.
which they were prevented from worshipping. That means that originally worshipping idols was prevented in
Mm-hmm.
India. You
Mm-hmm.
see?
Mm-hmm.
And so he didn't do it because he wanted them to become equal members of Hinduism.
Mm-hmm.
You see, he didn't
Mm-hmm.
want them to become Hindus. He wanted them to just become so that poor people are accepted as equal alongside the rich.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and
Mm-hmm.
untouchables and everything. Today, yes, they've given it a new meaning or something. Here is what they'll show. Yeah, but at that time, it was like the majority of the population. Today, they're going to call it Dalits and things like this.
Mm-hmm.
And but today, because millions of people have come out of poverty. Yeah, you've been to India.
Yes.
More than half the people are not poor anymore. You know
Mm-hmm.
this, yes?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
they live
Yep.
in cities, they've got water, they've got clothes.
Yep.
So for today, the Dalits represent less than half of the people, maybe a third or maybe a quarter. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
but at that time, these poor people were the majority. Today, it's only a minority, but they're not naked anymore. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to think of it from 100 years ago. Yes. So the thing is, what they've done is in history they call it Hindus. I don't call it Hindus because you saw there's Abdullah. That's a Muslim who's going out there to organize the printing of the idols, going to Germany to organize it. I mean, you got to be a billionaire at that time to organize these contracts to go to Germany. You
Mm-hmm.
see,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we're talking 100 years ago. Hardly anybody traveled in them days.
Right.
But anyway, they said it had opposition from the rich Hindus, or basically the rich people. Yes,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
these poor people would be allowed to enter the temple because the temple was the places where you could find water.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
see? Yes. And then they're saying that these people went there to worship idols. They went for water and they went for other things, but they ended up becoming worshippers. You
Mhm.
understand? And
Yes.
that's why today these people think they're Hindus. They think they're Hindus. They think their ancestors were worshipping this religion.
Mhm.
You see?
Mhm.
Yeah. Can you even see this religion existing 100 years ago for the majority of the people?
No.
I can't see it at all. I can see people in villages, yeah,
Mhm.
who barely went 1 or 2 kilometers outside their city. But
Mhm.
today we see people who are doing all types of worship and everything. That's what we see.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah, and it just makes no sense that this history. And the thing is, the guy who wrote the Indian Constitution, I mean, he was a big politician. Yeah, he did many other things. I'm not sure if he ever became a minister or anything. But anyway, yes, he said you can read this, but I'm afraid to declare this.
But I am afraid to declare this change of front. I didn't launch the temple entry movement because I wanted the depressed classes to become worshippers of idols which they were prevented from worshiping, or because I believed temple entry would make them equal members in and an integral part of the Hindu society. So far as this aspect of the case is concerned, I would advise the depressed classes to insist upon a complete overhauling of Hindu society and Hindu theology before they consent to become an integral part of Hindu society.
Yes, as you can see, it's basic. Yeah, he said
Mhm.
it's because he saw them as just people. They
Yep.
weren't Hindus, and
Hmm.
he just wanted them to basically become, humans, equal,
Hmm.
respected, accepted.
Yep.
Yes, he wanted them to get rid of the people in power. Yeah,
Hmm.
what we call Hindu society today. Yeah, so he basically wanted to get rid of it.
Hmm.
Yes, but he failed. Yeah. Instead, people went the other way. Yeah. When we go on and read his statements, what we find, and he said, it was the best way. I started read from the paragraph. Yeah, I started the temple entry.
Yeah. I started temporary satyagraha only because I felt that was the best way of energizing the depressed classes and making them conscious of their position. And as I believe I have achieved that purpose, I have no more use for temple entry. I want the depressed classes to concentrate their energy and resource on politics and education, and I hope that they will realize the importance of both.
Unfortunately, he failed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes, he failed. In India, we can see the thing is now people are doing all types of ceremonies and all types of things, worshipping the idols and things like this. That's what we see. And
Mm-hmm.
people think their ancestors have been doing it for centuries. That's what people think. And then there's people in the West who think this is an old religion and these old things and many things. And they're trying to figure out who these idols are. Were they actual historical characters? None of these people existed. Yes. And well, they did exist as other people from actual historical characters like Krishna is the Christ. Yes, but they modified it Buddha. Yes, some worshipper of God, and they mixed it with Christ and Mahamudra or Muhammad and other things. And we can see people who are just doing worship.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
that they actually think these are actually gods.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, since the 1920s, yes, at that time it was still only a minority that lived in the cities that went in. Since then, now it's become like a widespread throughout India. Yes, and still there's another quarter of the people who are poor. Yes, who are living in the villages who still don't know what these temples and idols are. Yes, unless if they go in the city areas. And then they're going to tell us, this is the caste system. It's been there for centuries.
Mhm.
Brahmins, Kash- Kshatriyas,
Mhm.
Vaishyas, and Sudras, and
Mhm.
etc. What they
Mhm.
call them is the priests or teachers. Yeah. Then the
Mhm.
rulers. then the landowners, then the servants.
Mhm.
Yeah, the fifth group. And as you noticed, it's a triangle at the bottom is the majority. So
Mhm.
yeah, they invented all these things and all these whatever, but people can find it. This is widespread information, but most people aren't checking it. So the Rajiv Varma press was one of the first.
Mhm.
Yes, and then it spread. Other people were doing it. It became common. Yes, so what they did was, here is an example, they printed many cheap pictures. And at that time, people were criticizing, like Bimrao Ramji Ambedkar.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah. And they said, it was a joke. And other people said it did not represent the legacy of the artist, diluting the purity of the original image. There was no images. The people were naked. They didn't know anything. They
Mhm.
never went to temples. They didn't even know what a temple was. They didn't know what worship was. You see, of this Hindu worship system. Yeah, you see.
Yep.
So they were giving out these pictures, small postcard size. Yeah. So they're just giving them out. And that's how, unfortunately, the truth is Hinduism is a new religion, total invention. Yes. I'm very sorry, but that's what the evidence shows. I don't know what people want me to say, but unfortunately, it's sad. Many people want to know this. That's why I've said it. I like Hindus, and I've seen that there's many people who are very conscious, very educated, that they're very spiritual, they're nice people. But when it comes to history, I'm sorry, it's actually a forgery. Yes. So the Lakshmi was one of the first few we could see, and the Saraswati. They started with females, of course, the females. You see,
Mhm.
yeah, because the thing is, these things, the female things, were yeah. And let's go into it a bit more into the history. Yes, so that
Mhm.
it's clear, so that people don't make mistake. Make no mistake. Yes, when you could read this, read the title slowly.
Okay. When man created God in his image. The
Yes,
oth-
that you're creating God in what you think God is.
Mhm. Mhm.
Humanism, according to yourself, your idea. So they
Mhm.
just invented these historical characters or modified them from existing characters, wrote the Vedas in Europe, and then from Europe and the West, they brought these machineries. By that time, America had become important in urban centers. They were involved. Many Muslims were involved in this, many Hindus. It was all about money. But carry on
Mhm.
reading.
Okay, the other chromolithograph launched in September 1894 was Saraswati. Another aspect of the Lakshmi and Saraswati chromolithographs worth mentioning is that these are probably the first popular images of Hindu deities which depict them in human form. Earlier religious imagery were two-dimensional and illustrative. In the Lakshmi and Saraswati images, man created God in his image. In this way, these chromolithographs created a bridge, in a sense, between man and the divine. These chromolithographs and many later images derived from this mold became objects of everyday conversations in households. They were viewed every day following a concept of darshan and were conversed with in the form of prayer, making these chromolithographs exceedingly important and relevant religious images.
Okay, people have got to understand. Same like when mobile phones first came out, for the majority of the people 30 years ago. Slowly they came out. There were big blocks. A few people had it, then more, then more. Then many teenagers had it, and then kids have it. Now it's becoming like widespread. So
Mhm.
they started, 130 years ago, 1895. By the 1920s, maybe a few percent of people had it. Yes, by the 1930s, it was still a few percent. Even by the 1950s, maximum 10% of the people had like a
Mhm.
picture. And so what happened is, yes, let's be clear about this. Yes, is that these are the first popular images of Hindu gods, which
Mhm.
depict them in Hindu form. They're the first that showed that the Hindu gods were actually in human form.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now, if we don't have these images, and before the 1890s, then the Hindu gods, we don't even know if they were human.
Mhm.
You see?
Mhm.
That's another thing. It's because the entire story and everything has been invented. Yes. And then they're saying that the earlier religious imagery were two-dimensional and illustrative. Even that history is a forgery on the walls and these so-called drawings and carvings. Many of them, most of them don't even look old. They mysteriously turned up in places in the middle of nowhere in buildings that look like huge stone industrial buildings blown up and there's nobody living there. You
Mhm.
see? But
Mhm.
basically, these men created God in their idea. Yes? And these pictures, postcards, created the bridge whereby men knew what God was. Yes, and then it slowly, in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that they became, people spoke about them saying, hey, I know Rama, Sita, Krishna, Buddha, Mahamudra, and
Mhm.
all these things. So, and then the thing is, people started praying to them. Yes, and slowly, the postcards were cheaper. People started carving statues, idols, things like this. Now, in many Hindu homes, you go and see these pictures of these gods there throughout India. You see it, or statues, you see, and
Mhm.
they're doing all forms of worship. Or none of this existed. You see, and
Yes.
when Raja Ravi Varma and his brother and these people were involved, and he did some of the first paintings. Don't forget, we've
Mhm.
forgotten about these paintings because they did the first few paintings.
Mhm.
Yes, and so these paintings today they're seen as historical, iconic artists bidding war. Yes, the lithograph was sold for $2,000, more than twice the starting price. Some of
Mhm.
them are now, they've opened museums on this and other things.
Mhm.
But anyway, let's go to many other places because people are going to say, it's not enough, this evidence. There
Mhm.
was no Hindu gods, there was no pictures, there was no statues, there was no idols, there
Mhm.
was no Hinduism. You can read this. So, when we say these lithographs, they're postcards,
Yeah.
pictures. Okay,
Yes.
you could read this.
Catering to the masses or select groups of people led to the popularity of the chromolithographs from the Ravi Varma press and consequently its financial success. This is an example of an image made to resemble a painting in the Tanjore style.
Yeah, they made these paintings. Now they're making them, and slowly more and more people brought them. Same like there was a select group of people who had mobiles at first.
Mhm.
I'm showing this as easy history instead of the intellectual garbage select group of people. No, at first it's like when the expensive iPhone comes out, the rich people buy it. Slowly, more and more people can afford it. It's just simple mass
Mhm.
production. Yes. So
Mhm.
here, yeah. So what they did was, as they noticed these things became popular, yeah, it was art. So rich people did, like you and me. Yeah, let's say we're rich. Let's say so we're
Okay.
going to buy them because I like this art. It looks amazing, this art. You could read
Mhm.
this.
Tenjore paintings were expensive as they used gold and even at times real gemstones. This chromolithograph would have certainly found favor with many people who could not afford an original Tenjore painting. Notice the details of the jewels in the Tenjore painting style.
Yes. The originals, of course, cost a lot more. But
Right.
these ones, many people were making them, even, just gold thread and other things. And the thing is, you see them all over India in many
Mm-hmm.
places, in restaurants. You see them on
Mm-hmm.
walls and decorations. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, nobody thought it's going to become a worship thing. When they first did it, they probably thought it's going to be a business. We're going to be able to sell it. And then, yeah, you just turn and say, hey, this is God. Whoa, yeah, you're going to make billions out of it. Yeah, so they
Mm-hmm.
did it. Then afterwards, the poor people, they didn't know anything, so they started buying it. Same like in Europe. People
Mm-hmm.
were buying crosses in the 1950s, 60s. People were buying Bibles like crazy in the
Mm-hmm.
1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
thinking, whoa, it's secret and things like this. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, it was a business. If many people have looked, these paintings with Krishna and other things, and of course, they used it as art, and now it's become, oh, don't you know, this is Indian art, it's Indian history. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
so you could read this.
Yes. In Tenjore painting style, hierarchy of people in a picture was depicted through comparative size. The more important the person, the larger in the frame. There are instances where an infant, Krishna, is depicted larger in frame than an adult. Here, the minor persons are not only depicted in supplication, but also much smaller in size.
Yes. It reminds me of the story of Jesus Christ, the
Mhm,
infant Jesus Christ. Yes. Especially when there is the story in the Quran that as a child infant, he starts speaking, and then we see all these pictures of Jesus Christ baby throughout Europe. Yes,
mhm,
many of these things with Arabic writing in Europe. Yeah, in Renaissance paintings. Yes,
mhm,
so what happened in Europe? They were doing it in India, but instead of him being Jesus Christ, he's just become Krishna, or
mhm,
Christ. Yeah, so we have these infants, baby things, and so the thing is that they were doing it. It was like a business, and then it turned into a religion when they first started. I'm sure you don't know it's going to be a religion, and then you think, hey, the people are falling for it. Of course, it's a business. I mean, who wouldn't go for it? I mean, $1 billion business. I mean, well, why say no? you know. And so these things. So basically, there's many websites. I'm showing many different websites here. People
mhm,
can study all this themselves. This is the BBC. What do
mhm.
they say about Raja Ravi Varma himself? About this man?
Let's see, it says
This
culture.
is
Yeah, this is the artist who took Indian mythology and history and gave them flesh and blood, clothes, jewelry, and architecture, and created heroic stories where women took center stage. Most Indians recognize mythological characters and deities from his work and pray to prints of his paintings of gods and goddesses. This type of Indian art had.
okay. It's a bit clear.
Mhm,
Everyone knows that it's recent history. It started in the 1890s, same like when mobiles first came out, but because India was poor, no electric, no roads, no nothing, even in the 1950s for the majority, yeah, it
mhm,
didn't spread until the 1950s, 60s, 1780s,
mhm,
1980s. In the 1930s and 40s, it's like 5% who are in the cities. So
mhm,
what they did was, these Vedas, myths, and all these things, these were just books
mhm,
no doubt written in Europe. Nobody could speak Sanskrit. Nobody could read it. These
mhm,
villages are naked. They can't read it. Nobody knows it. Yeah. So they turned these books, which they're calling history, but it's not even history. So
yeah.
what they did was, yeah, they made pictures of them and statues. Yeah. Put gold on them, decorations. That's why you see these Hindu statues with gold and all these other things. They're putting flowers, decorations, everything. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm,
Because the more colors you did and everything, it made more money. Yeah. And of course, you put women, half the naked women with breasts. Then, as the idols develop, you turn them into some people like the darkness. So you call it Kalima, the black goddess, or the
mhm,
goddess of magic. You invent all this history. And then you say, hey, we found more manuscripts. They added more and more things on. Yes.
mhm,
And then
mhm,
people start praying to these pictures. These pictures turn into statues. And this had no precedent. The word precedent, because some of the listeners don't know what precedent means, it means this has never happened before in
mhm,
India.
mhm. Yep.
Basically, Hinduism wasn't there.
Mhm,
Yes, it was never there before. It's the first time. You
mhm,
see, the
mhm,
first case.
mhm.
Yes, so that's what it is. Precedent. It's the beginning
Yep.
of widespread Hinduism starting. And even in the 1950s, by then, you could probably say for the current Hindus, only a quarter of them had basically really become Hindus. It's only after more and more education in 1980s, 1990s, people are going to school, they study it, they really think it's their religion, their ancestry, and the politics, the BJP, and
Mhm,
everything else. Now people really think it's new. Yeah,
mhm.
you could read this.
Yes, as an artist, he changed India's vision of gods and goddesses from supernatural imagery to a human style, with an attention to minute details from fabrics, hairstyles, and jewelry to artifacts and furniture. His style used textures, light, and shadows to help evoke the mood. It is famously said that in India that in his paintings you can almost hear the rustle of silk saris. His favorite subjects were women in traditional attire, reclining on a bed or lost in thought. His
Ha ha ha.
specialty, yes.
Carry on.
Us. His specialty was realism in its peak. Each costume and piece of jewelry looks the same as the original. The pearls, diamonds, the temple jewelry, all were of that era. The furniture, building interiors, utensils, all were available at the time he did his painting, says Kochi based artist Bindi Raja Gopal.
Yeah. It's not that he says it, it's known.
Hmm.
Yes. The
Hmm.
thing is, the saris were made by the machines. You can't
Hmm.
make a sari without
Yes,
machines
right.
and without the cotton industry. Yeah.
Hmm.
So basically, yeah, it's not India's vision of gods and goddesses. We've got King Arthur. He's not a god.
Hmm.
Yeah, we've got the Knights of the Rain round the round table. They've
Hmm.
got Krishna, Brahma, which sounds like Christ and Abraham.
Hmm.
Yes, Saraswati or Sarah. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. We've got these things. Buddha, or Buddha in Arabic. Yeah,
Hmm.
worshipper. Yeah.
Hmm.
So what we've got is these people. Um, People thought they were like amazing heroes in history, like King Arthur. So basically, they turned it into gods and goddesses. Yeah,
Hmm.
and of course they turned it. Then they said the Kama Sutra on all these other things. Women in beds, half naked, lost in whatever, and the sexual history and whatever. So they just added it on, invented it as they went along. It became popular, and it just became a joke. In fact, people should pause for thought, read through these things themselves, and
Hmm.
it says so. They found it was making money, and the thing is, who came along? Colonial businessmen, not just from Germany. This is just one company. There were others. Yeah, in 1894, Varma set up the printing press in Mumbai, and what did they do? They brought German machines, German techniques.
Hmm.
Yes, and you could read this from the press produced. Start from there.
The press produced oleographs, prints designed to resemble oil paintings depicting gods, goddesses, and scenes from epics and religious texts like Mahabharata, Ramayana, and Puranas. It also printed matchbox labels, picture postcards, textile labels, and advertisements.
Yes, basically nobody knew the Mahabharata, Ramayana, or the Puranas.
Hmm.
Yes, people were naked. The
Hmm.
majority, they weren't Hindus at all. Now,
Hmm.
if India doesn't wake up to this violence is going to continue.
Hmm.
Yes, and things like this. And 1/5 of India is Muslim, 1/5 is Christian, and all
Hmm.
these people are going to suffer. Then another 10%, there's minorities. There's Indian Jews,
Hmm.
there's Indian Baha'i,
Hmm.
there's Indian Zoroastrians and
Hmm.
all these
Hmm.
other things. And unfortunately, religion is getting out of control. And
Yeah.
many people talk about the Hindu, Christian, Muslim violence and the Baha'i violence between each other. There's no need for it. I
Hmm.
mean, this religion's not yours. It was business people who came from Europe.
Hmm.
They put it on matchboxes. Yeah, the people in cities. Yeah, so
Hmm.
that to promote it. So that in the end you thought that it was your god. Yeah. And then they put
Hmm.
these naked women because they know that women promotes it. Yeah.
Hmm.
So you could read this. Yeah. Rajai Ravi Varma. Yes.
Right.
RRV.
Yes. RRV was influenced by many painting traditions from the Tanjore painting style to Rubens to the Dutch painter Lawrence Alma Tadema, who painted scenes from Roman, Egyptian, and Greek history. If you see his paintings from goddesses like Saraswati, they were wearing modern saris and high-necked blouse with full sleeves, a Victorian influence, though he grew up around women in his native Kerala who were topless, with the traditional mundu, similar to a sarang,
Yeah.
says writer.
That's it basically. Yes.
Hmm.
Basically, what do you call it? He saw that throughout Europe there's a big market.
Hmm.
People believed in this Roman history and Greek history,
Right.
these half naked women. Yeah,
Hmm.
young boys who thought, hey, I want to buy these pictures.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
people were buying them. Yeah.
Hmm.
So the thing is, in Europe, they believe this history too. So that's
Hmm.
what we can see is that we can see they're wearing half these modern clothes that were around.
Hmm.
Yes. that they were printing them in 1910s, 1920s, updating them, and things
Mhm.
like this. And it's a fact. Yes, the majority of the women were actually naked, topless in Kerala because it
Mhm.
was so poor. These people did not know Hinduism.
Mhm.
They didn't even have the saris. These
Mhm.
people were so naked and things like this.
Mhm.
And so his paintings, but then there were other paintings, modifications. Things slowly changed after the 1980s, but basically it started from there. And these
Mhm.
people, but you could read this.
The immense popularity of Ravi Varma's paintings led to an initial suggestion by Sir Tanjavur Mahadava Rao, the Diwan of Baroda, suggesting the artist send some of his paintings to Europe to have them printed and circulated. This suggestion eventually led to the establishment of the Ravi Varma Press. The press was initially established in Bombay and commenced
Yes,
functioning.
yeah, we've been
Yes,
through that part.
yes,
But what
yes,
I'm showing here is
yes.
that it went
Mhm,
to the rich people. And
mhm,
so this Abdullah, yes,
mhm,
this Muslim guy, yeah,
mhm,
he goes there to Europe and then they print a few in Europe and they send them out to business people,
mhm,
investors.
mhm,
Hey, what do you think of this? Oh, yeah, this will make a lot of money.
mhm,
Hmm, let's in
mhm,
this, invest in this. Yes.
mhm,
So
mhm.
that's what they did. Yes, and you could read website after website everywhere. All these historians, this is common history. Yes, and they're all
Yes.
saying the same thing. Yes, you could read this. This is from Rajai Ravi Varma, gs.com. Yes,
Mhm,
what do they
mhm.
say?
The images from the press allowed pictures to reach the common man and were highly influential, altering the notions of religion, imagery, and aesthetic sensibilities of the people of the Indian subcontinent and beyond.
Yes, because they were doing it beyond there.
Mhm,
Throughout everywhere they taught in Vietnam, in China, in Korea, everywhere. Statues, pictures, everything. The people are so poor they don't know anything. Same like there's a great researcher in France. His name is Didier Lacapelle. Yes, and
mhm,
yeah, he even pointed out, yes, that the Europeans they're teaching virgin populations, people who don't know these religions, that they
mhm,
were teaching them modern Islam and basically other things. And he's written in French, Didier Lacapelle, Chronologie de Religions. His work is pretty good. I recommend it to people, even though I've
mhm.
not examined it all fully myself, because, my French is, je parle français, mais je parle pas bien. Désolé, désolé, désolé. C'est pas mon faute. J'ai fait
Mhm,
quoi? J'ai essayé beaucoup, mais j'ai gagné pas. I tried very hard, but I didn't win. So
mhm,
I understood, half his work, but I saw some of his work in English, and a lot of it is amazing. So Varma. So people are just thinking he's some painter or something or
mhm,
whatever, but no, he was from the royal family of Travancore. Yeah, basically the
mhm,
ruling class.
mhm,
Like everybody else is a peasant.
mhm,
Yes, and things like this. And even today, his family are, Maharajas and people like that in India. Yes,
mhm,
they're part of the secret ruling elite or whatever is
mhm,
going on. Yes. So what we can find, and the thing is, who promoted this guy? What people don't understand is, yeah, you can't get access to Europe. These investors, printing machines. You could read the
mhm.
second paragraph. The British.
Yes, the British administrator Edgar Thurston was significant in promoting the careers of Varma and his brother. Varma received widespread acclaim after he won an award for an exhibition of his paintings at Vienna in 1873. Varma's paintings were also sent to the World's Columbian Exposition held in Chicago in 1893, and he was awarded three gold medals. He traveled throughout India in search of subjects. He often modeled Hindu goddesses on Indian women whom he considered beautiful. Ravi Varma is particularly noted for his paintings depicting episodes from the story of Dushyanta
Yes.
and,
Basically,
yes,
you've got the message.
okay.
Nobody knew this guy. Nobody would have
Mm-hmm.
got the paintings. It was the British. And
Mm-hmm.
when we say the British, it means the British, the French, the Dutch, the businessmen. because
mhm,
we're talking about business people here. They're saying administrators, so you're going to think some office guy. No,
mhm,
it's a few business people like you and me. We're sitting there saying, "Hey, look at this.
mhm,
We could make some money from this, man."
mhm, mhm,
Yeah,
mhm, mhm,
yeah. Well, look at those businessmen who are
mhm,
making money from ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, and all this,
mhm,
and
mhm,
ancient Arabia. All these Arabian women in the harem. Yeah, look at this. All these women who are half naked and all these goddesses and things. Let's get this done. An exhibition for rich people in Vienna. And so
mhm,
you do an exhibition. They come, they buy paintings in exhibitions or copies, and then you tell them, hey, do you want to invest in this project? Printing machines were expensive. They cost millions of dollars for that
mhm,
time
mhm,
equivalent. And then you think, hey, let's get this done. We could make a lot of money. And then it slowly turned into a religion by the 1920s that many of these poor people and other people thought, hey, let's open temples. Yeah, with statues. Let's turn the paintings into statues. So you're making more and more money. You
mhm,
see?
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah, so the thing is, it wasn't like it wasn't like they knew they were going to do this. It just came along and they thought, hey, it makes money. So that's what you do. It's like right now there's many movements that are many businessmen making money out of transgenderism, the fashion, the other things. It's like it's a business. So the thing is, if you can make money from it, yeah, why not do it?
mhm,
So here you could read this.
mhm.
Who ran the entire printing press? Who designed all the pictures on all the many different things of all these different gods, different goddesses? Who did everything of the
Sev-
entire pantheon?
Several German technicians looked after the servicing and working of the machines, and by extension, took part in the formulation of the modern Hindu pantheon.
Yeah. When we say German, at that time, Germany basically didn't exist. It
Mhm,
was Prussia. Yes.
mhm,
And there were people from France, from Holland, from England, from Russia,
mhm,
from Italy, from Turkey, from Egypt, from India, from
mhm,
Pakistan, from Bangladesh. In these territories, many businessmen were involved, many other workers, and they basically formulated the designs and everything of the entire Hindu gods of what they look like today. Is he a man? Is he a woman? Does he
mhm,
have two arms and two legs? Can
mhm.
you believe this?
Yeah, I can believe it. Yes.
Yeah, well, they did. We can't
Yeah.
find any more evidence of any of these gods or anything. They basically invented it, and
Mhm.
today it's history. And
Yeah.
then they wrote and updated manuscripts. Professor Fomenko
Mhm.
points out that it's just a total scam. The Jesuits and their allies and the Masons, they wrote these manuscripts and everything, and then they've been updated and added new things to that to match these things that make money. You
Mhm.
see?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, the entire thing is a scam. What
Mhm.
we call Hinduism, Buddhism, and all these other religions, you could go throughout the entire region. The French were doing it in Indochina, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, in
Mhm.
Thailand. The British and all these other people were involved. Yeah. So
Mhm.
the thing is, they formulated the Hindu gods and the goddesses and the artwork for the symbol and everything. This is more deeply, I go into the deep geometry of this in the
Mhm.
book 33 Degrees, that
Mhm.
they applied the principle of the 33 degrees so
Mhm.
that they turn it into symbols of worship.
Mhm.
Yes, of
Mhm.
how they did it. It was they used deep geometry and
Mhm.
deep designs. It was, these are very educated people. They came
Mhm.
along and they used the 33rd degree, and they
Mhm.
thought, how are we going to get these people to worship these designs?
Mhm.
How many hands on the goddess? But if they put a snake on the goddess or the statue of Buddha, where will the snake go? What's on the palm of his hand? Is it the shape of a snake? Is it on his neck? What is going on? Now that is described in my book 33 Degrees.
Mhm.
Now this is like it's just unbelievable what they did.
Mhm.
But it's many people. It develops over time. Like Coca-Cola. Every Christmas, there's new adverts. You
Mhm.
update the adverts, how to brainwash people. Yeah. If one day people think Coca-Cola is a god and he's Father Christmas, yeah, Father Coca-Cola or something, yeah, yeah, they've hit the jackpot. They could make billions out of it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Let me show you. Yeah, that if they turn around and say Father Cola or yes, on Coca-Cola adverts, if they can get it done, it's worth a lot of money. That if they can turn around and say, hey, this is God Himself. Yeah,
Mhm.
so that's what they did. They managed to do it because of the Hindu Vedas. Yeah, I think they didn't originally know or think that these people would become worshippers. Yeah,
Mhm.
and that it would turn into like many different religions, many different pictures, and everything. But it actually happened, and many other business people, many other people. So now it's actually happened. It's too late. You
Mhm.
see?
Mhm.
Yeah. So they say that these investors, the history is a total lie.
Mhm.
Yes. The British were involved, then from the Vienna exhibition, private investors, and the machines came from Germany, some Germans, Europeans, other places. And then the press was totally controlled after 1901 by the Germans.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
then many Indian business people, only after the 1970s and 80s, more of the Indian local business people got involved making paint and making these pictures and statues. But anyway, so the thing is that one of the German technicians, they're saying he's a technician. At that time, he must have been a millionaire anyway, who
Mhm.
supplied the machinery. He basically controlled the entire business after 1901.
Mhm.
Yes? And but there's more than this. Yes, to see how the idols developed in the statues. Yes, so
Yes.
you could read this.
Yes. Under his supervision, the press became the largest picture printing establishment in India. The quality of prints were very high and could be favorably compared with imported prints from Germany. For the transfer of the pictures to stone, Schleicher relied on the artistic ability of another German lithographer.
We know that many of these stone statues aren't old because they're wearing the clothes that
Mhm.
are in the early 20th century.
Mhm.
Everybody's noticed this.
Mhm.
Yes, of the Indian clothes that are made from some of these factories, from some of these mills. Let me just show you Mumbai cotton mills. Yeah, where they made saris and other things. Yeah, you can't do it without the machinery.
Mhm.
And yeah, you can do it with machinery in the villages. Yeah, there's
Mhm.
primitive machines, but the way that they've got showing that it's like widespread,
Mhm.
the textile mills in Mumbai and the Tata family and others were involved in many of the things. That's another long story. Yeah,
Mhm.
the textile mills. Without these mills, yeah, but this is a 20th century phenomena. Yeah,
Mhm.
yes, or late 19th century and other things. After the Industrial Revolution, this is how we know that the history is a total joke and a total lie. That from
Mhm.
there, this is how we get saris. You can't make saris from the back of your, backside. Ah, yeah. Yeah, I'm being serious too. Yeah, it's because
Mhm.
it's thin and it's fine, these fabrics.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
And the people were half naked that we could see these iconic mills in Mumbai and other places. Yeah. That they were using slave labor, these Europeans, and these people to get that. What they did is these workers here, these same workers,
Mhm.
are now paying with their salary to buy these pictures.
Mhm.
Then a few generations later, their children and grandchildren have started buying the statues and the pictures that they put in stone. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, of course, they're going to say these stone images that we found of the Hindu goddesses, yeah, are ancient. Let me
Mhm.
just show an example. Hindu goddess stone,
Mhm.
ancient. They're just coming out with it that we could see it's the same damn artwork. It's the same designs that they made them look like this, even for the Buddhist things and everything. And they're going to tell us, oh, no, it's ancient, ancient,
Mhm.
ancient. They only started it recently. They decorated the temples as well recently. That you could tell it's just a project. It's a business thing. That's
Mhm.
that's why many people are saying in all these caves. Remember, we did the other videos. People will have to go back and go through them. Yeah, that what's going on. Why is it that there's 19 caves, 19 statues, Buddha's 19 feet,
Mhm.
19 lotus flowers,
Mhm.
19 steps, 19
Mhm.
stairways?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's because they know they did this and it
Mhm.
was organized and they use sacred geometry. And the sacred geometry they use, they know that you're going to fall for the trick. That's why the sacred geometry within the 33 degrees of these designs, they're
Mhm.
using these designs in worship, not just in Hinduism, in Islam, in Christianity, and in Buddhism, and in Judaism. They're using it in all to make people worship symbols and other things and many other things. And people have fallen for the trick. But
Mhm.
these symbols are based on the sacred geometry, the original science. And Jesus Christ was one of these scientists. So if
Mhm.
anybody reads my book, 33 Degrees, they'll understand it. And many people have said you know, I've not mentioned that there's other things I have. It's in my book, 33 Degrees. If
Mhm.
anybody wants to read it, it's there. Yes,
Mhm.
but basically, you could see it. I want you to read it again in case people don't realize these things. You could read the last sentence. Yes, or
Okay.
read it all
All right.
under his supervision.
Under his supervision, the press became the largest picture printing establishment in India. The quality of prints was very high and could be favorably compared with the imported prints from Germany. For the transfer of the pictures to stone, Schleicher relied on the artistic ability of another German lithographer.
Okay, now, one, it's the biggest. They're doing it throughout India. It's making so much money, millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were also importing them from Germany because there were other companies.
Mm-hmm.
People were making money out of this
Mm-hmm.
and from all these workers and all these other things as India slowly industrialized. Then they thought, let's turn them into stones, into statues. Or nobody went to the temples. Nobody knew Hinduism. Nobody could read or write. Nobody knew the Vedas. This is not their history. This is not their religion. Now, the people in India, one day they'll wake up and they'll realize there was a global civilization that people call Tataria, and somebody blew the hell out of the old world in the 19th century or around 1800. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what we can see is that there's thousands of these buildings in India. Nobody is thinking about them. Why is the thousands of them? Who built them? How? When? Why? What were their functions? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, these buildings are industrial, mega huge structures that
Mm-hmm.
nobody. Yes, and
Yes.
and so now, so they've started these things. I forgot the dates. Was it 1901? But anyway, you could read this. Jahat and Fleischer.
Yes, if Gerard was a master of the backdrop, then Schleicher was known as a master of rendering human figures on stone, outline of a
Basically,
lithograph.
you've got yeah. Basically, they were turning them into stone. Other
Hmm.
people were doing it. So Schleicher did it, and the workers, mass production, they're supplying the entire India.
Hmm.
What do you think's going on? Can you find a Hinduism before then?
No.
All of these things that they're depicting, many of them you can see are from
Hmm.
the late 19th century and early 20th century
Hmm.
because of the fashion, the style, and the artistic works actually matches what some of these colonial Europeans invented. You
Hmm.
see?
Yeah.
Yes. And then the
Yes.
puja system started.
Hmm.
Nobody did it. They didn't have these pictures as statues. So
Hmm.
now, as the pictures and statues come, what do people?
Let's see. In the late 19th century, lithographic presses in India began to print popular images of Hindu deities that were often used in household puja worship.
Yes. So they've turned them half man, half monkey, half this, half that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, you see. So that's what they were doing.
Hmm.
So now you've got to the bottom of it. After we did many of these videos, now you've got to the bottom of it.
Hmm.
Yes, and you basically understand it now. Now that you've basically understood and you've seen the mathematical codes, because they put their codes there. They know they did this. This code is very important. The secrets of the Kabbalah explains the 19.
Hmm.
That explains just the 19. Now, the
Hmm.
33 degrees goes even deeper. It shows how they use these images in Christianity, in
Hmm.
Islam, in Buddhism, in Hinduism to basically brainwash the entire world. And
Hmm.
now they're using it in brand names. Yes, and there's many people who are turning around and saying, hey, it's got to do with the cube of Saturn. One, Saturn was never called Saturn. So if
Hmm.
anybody says it's Saturn, that's a lie. They gave it that name. Two, yeah, have you ever been on a NASA spaceship? There's no evidence they ever went there to prove that Saturn's got rings. Yeah,
Hmm.
even from the best telescopes that we've got, we're not even sure if they're rings because Saturn looks different depending on the atmosphere and
Hmm.
on the parallax error of the microscope and many other things.
Hmm.
But anyway, the book 33 Degrees, it's not just the symbolism. This goes through the symbolism based on the mathematics of number 19. It shows how they use this and how it scientifically and geometrically affects your mind.
Hmm.
Yes, it's psychological.
Hmm.
Yes, and so that explains that. But my next book it will go through the actual geometry, sacred geometry.
Hmm.
Is Hinduism and Buddhism, are they actually ancient religions? Are they even religions at all? Or were
Mm.
they totally fabricated and invented by Western colonial businessmen after the 19th century? What do you think? You can say anything you want. I don't want anybody, like some people comment and say David said it. But
Yes.
I'd like to hear your opinion. What do you think?
My opinion, based on the case evidence, is that it seems to be both Buddhism and Hinduism is fabricated in late 1800s or early 1900s.
That's what the evidence shows.
Mm.
They brought these books, they brought the Vedas, then they turned the Vedas into living images. Then they
Mm.
started teaching it in schools. Then they started turning it into statues. They were transporting these idols on horses with wheels, taking them, building temples, modifying them of other buildings of an older civilization that got blown away. They
Mm.
used the number 19 or the Kabbalah in the structure of many of the construction, and they use the 33rd degree, they use the highest degree
Mm.
of sacred geometry, of
Mm.
when they put it into the images and other things and the statues of how to brainwash people to worship even the images of Christ or the statues of Christ, or even if it's Shia Islam, these pictures of Imam Ali, they've
Mm.
used the sacred geometry, the 33rd degree. And
Right.
that I've explained it in my book, 33 Degrees.
Mm.
Yes, and the thing is, not just based on what I've shown, even you know India very well. Can you see any of these people, were they Hindus at all or Buddhists in that entire region before the 1850s? Did these religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, exist for 95% of the people?
I can't say positively that that was the case, that they existed in the 1850s. No.
There is no evidence whatsoever of these religions. The
Mm.
people were half naked, they were poor, they had their traditional religions, they had their oral history. And,
Mm.
in all these regions, we find these strange group of people that many people call crazy.
Mm.
They call them Muslims. Many people call them crazy, not me. I hold everyone equal. And they've got some strange book called the Oral Quran, which they've memorized and passed down.
Mm.
But many of the villagers who didn't have it, they were like very poor. It's a serious question why they didn't have the Oral Quran.
Mm.
Yes,
Mm.
which shows that the Oral Quran is recent also.
Mm.
It must have recently spread in the last 300 years. I can't find it more than 200 years, maximum 300 years. And even Didier Lacapelle shows points out that and Professor Flamenco, it's only in the last 2 centuries modern Islam has been invented. But
Mm.
what did they invent it on? They based it on the Kabbalah, on 19 and the 33rd degrees, that they use the most advanced sacred geometry. Even Freemasonry applies sacred geometry in its writings, and everyone knows that Freemasonry is linked to many of these writers in the 19th and 20th centuries
Mm.
who were involved in fabricating history in many places around the world. Of course, they're going to say they did it for good reasons, for the enlightenment of man. Yes. But of course, the thing is that when it's seen from a business point of view or something else, somebody could say, yeah, the Vedas enlightens you. How? Where? You can even see the man who wrote India's constitution, who basically says, no way, don't even call me a Hindu. I mean, this is a joke.
Mm.
Yes,
Mm. Mm.
I didn't do this. I didn't do this for the freedom of the people so that they will see these statues, they will see these pictures so that they're going to worship it and believe it. Yeah, they didn't have this worshipping system. Even he basically says it. You don't need to say it. It's only, just 100 years ago. It's
Mm.
not difficult to ask people their grandfather's grandfather were naked. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
or half naked, and they didn't know these religions. And
Right.
it's the same that
Right.
if you want to understand it today, you could go to Latin America, yes,
Mm.
and you'll see naked people who
Mm.
don't have any religions whatsoever like this.
Mm.
And what we're seeing, it's the same in India.
Mm.
It's the same in India that slowly, first they're naked, then some people come and they gave them clothes. Yes, the Europeans came. So slowly they start wearing clothes, like we see in the pictures in India and in
Mhm.
other places. Then you start teaching them a language, you start giving them Christianity, Islam, or Hinduism. That's what you do, or
Mm.
Buddhism, or whatever. Yes,
Mm.
yeah. So now, from all of them, to understand what is going on and what was the religious system from the old world order, yeah, I made it easy for people. I've actually made it very easy, yes, in simple books to explain it. In my books, Secrets of Kabbalah and 33 Degrees. The 33 degrees goes through the geometry of the symbols. Many people think we understand these symbols, you know, they're used in brand names and everything. Yeah, but it's the 33rd degree. People don't understand the sacred geometry of it. The sacred geometry is very important because then you will understand the function and the purpose of why humans exist or why something else exists. It's like from there, you'll come to a better understanding anyway. Yes. Well, anyway, the rest of the information is in the book 33 Degrees. And the thing is, me personally, I'm not stupid. I could see it. There was no Hinduism. Same like there's no Hinduism in Latin America with these naked people. There was no Islam. There was no Christianity. There was no Buddhism. Yes, there. It came from Europe. Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism came from Europe. We can't find Hinduism and Buddhism in Europe, so we know that they were totally invented. What we could find in Europe is that one quarter of Europe, yes, or maybe more, was a Muslim under the Ottoman times, and we could find there was Catholic Christianity, Protestantism, there was Judaism. So these religions are older. Yes, these religions, and they came from the same religion. Basically, they're all fighting about, basically they split apart. Starting from Jesus Christ, where the Jews turn around and say, "Hey, Christ, he was not of God," and where the Muslims say, "Oh, he was not the child of God," and where the Christians say, "Oh, yes, he is the child of God in essence and substance too." So we could see that was one religion, and that was basically from the West and from Europe. And the rest of the world's religions, they look like they were totally invented. Not look like, they were. I mean, if anybody's trying to say to me, hey, they had these images, they had these statues, prove it. Come on, show me your site and show me something. I can't seem to find anything. People have said, what about these sites? I've gone through it in many videos, many books. And for the rest of it, for how the symbolic art and everything is the 33rd degree in Hinduism, it's in my book, 33 Degrees. Challenge it, prove it. I can't find it. I cannot find it. Can you find it? I
No, I
challenge
cannot.
you. Let's see if you can find it. Yeah. And for the 33 degrees, how 19 becomes 33, you can't even find that online, which I call a conspiracy in itself. Only one video, a man is talking about something else, and he just happens to come across that topic and he mentions it. I shared the YouTube if people want to find it. But it's almost like nobody's talking about this. Yeah, apart from the educated people and the elite amongst themselves. If you're very educated, master's degree or doctorate, you know it, or if you're in some organizations, you know it. It's because it financially benefits you. You see? Anyway, I don't know what to say. If anybody wants more information, I mean, on these things, the images that are in Hinduism, Buddhism, not just there, the images in Christianity. Why is it a cross? Why is the symbol of Allah as it is? Why does it look like that? What does that have to do with human destiny? How does that psychologically affect you? How do we know it was invented by the same group of people? Just have a look at this. The Muslims, they're going to say, oh no, we've had this symbol for centuries. It's always been like this. No, it hasn't. Somebody invented this symbol, and it's up to the 33rd degree, and it's become a symbol of worship. Many Muslims actually worship it, but the majority don't. They just say it's writing, it's decoration. If you see it as a decoration, it's okay. To me, when I see these Hindu paintings, statues. I mean, I like Ravi's paintings. Why should I lie about it? I like it. I call them art. Yes, when I look at the gold and some of the pearls and or the rubies and things, I've always thought it's wonderful. It's interesting. Yeah, even the women, I turn around and think, hey, it's great artistic. Like Greek art, Roman art. It's very amazing. What they've done is they've used some psychology. I mean, look at the symbol of Allah. Many people think it's been like that for centuries, but we can't seem to find it in Northern Europe or throughout India. Let me just find old Arabic coins, medieval. And the symbol of Allah, we don't seem to find the symbol. That's how we know that they modified the Arabic alphabet and modified everything, and they've turned it into a form of worship. Now, many people actually worship these things, and they think the writing protects you or something like that. But it's just writing. Yes. And when we look at the symbol of Allah in these pictures, I can't seem to see the symbol. Yeah. When you look at Allah in here, I'll just make it a bit bigger. Yeah. You don't find the current symbol that they're showing today.
Mhm.
Yes. What you find is in the original Arabic. Wait, let me just enlarge this and send it to you. Then
Mhm.
people could see it themselves, and then they will know it wasn't the same. So they turned it into a symbol. This is explained in my book, 33 Degrees. They did it on purpose. That's how you know that many of the Arabic manuscripts are forgeries. That's
Mhm.
how you know that modern Arabic and classical Arabic and what they call this Islamic history or the Hadith or whatever. The entire history is a forgery, and all the manuscripts that are showing the root words in Arabic and all these things, they invented the root word. You can invent a root word system, and they're
Mhm.
saying it's based on three. It's not, compared to the oral Quran, if people check. Yes, and that is probably the oldest book that you could find orally. All the other books are on manuscripts. Like there's many Muslims, like we mentioned the Quranists before. They talk through manuscripts, and they say the manuscript says this, but it doesn't match what people are reading in mosques. I go through that in my book 33 Degrees. I show clear examples that the Quran that they've got online. Here is the symbol of Allah there, and you
Mhm.
could see that there's one that's separate, then there's two in the middle, and then there's the around circle on the end. But when we look at the symbol for Allah today, it's
Mhm.
something else. Let me just show you. Yeah, the symbol of Allah today. Yes, what you will notice, it's totally different. That they turned it into like something whereby it's become like something for people to worship, like a W symbol, and there's reasons for it why they did it, because they've turned it into symbol worship and things like this, and it's the 33rd degree. But there are reasons why, and it psychologically affects you. Yes, that,
Mhm.
for example, it's like when you splash water on your face. You're not going to believe this. Yes, many people think it's a joke. Look at this symbol here. Yes, now when you look at that symbol, yeah, it looks like it's not going to psychologically affect you. But
Mhm.
if you understand sacred geometry, yes, um, let me just show you. It's like many people don't know these things. Now, when you splash water on your face, yes, water, within water, people can go and study it. It actually stores sounds.
Mhm.
Yes, it
Mhm.
stores sounds inside the water chemical. Water itself, when you splash it on your face, and the thing is, it makes sounds and it vibrates the sounds and other things. And because normal water, I'm not talking about purified water, just simple natural water which has got salt in. Yes, the thing is, that's why the Muslims are washing 5 parts of their body: their hands, the two hands, the feet, and the head. Yes, it's got things to do with radiation and with frequency. Now, if you're just using normal water, it blocks the high frequencies. The low frequency, normal water doesn't block it. But the thing is, who said we need to block all the frequencies? So Muslims normally wash up to about 5 times a day when they pray.
Mhm.
And the human connection to Earth, all this radiation and these other things, many people don't know. It's like once you understand the 33rd degree, you will understand who created these systems and why they're doing it. I mean, why do the Muslims pray 5 times a day? Yeah. Some people turn around and think, yeah, it's a coincidence. Why do the Jewish people wrap the strap around their arm 7 times when they're doing tefillin? Yeah, some people will say it's to do with Satan, but it's actually not. Like, for example, when they go to the wall, the Wailing Wall, it's called in English.
Mhm.
Yeah, when many people pray on Yom Kippur, actually, it's a beautiful thing and it's arranged. Yeah, the system has been created up to the 33rd degree. Oh, that's explained in my book, 33 Degrees. But once people understand sacred geometry, yes, then they will soon things become so easy. that you will soon begin to see. Now I can see what is the function of the ear. It's to hear. The function of the eyes is to see. This is the function of water. This is how they designed this design, because they know the symbol or this design for Google or the World Wide Web. Why is it called www? They know how it affects you, even how the written letters A, B, C, D, or every letter, how it affects you. Yes. And
Mm.
then soon, once you realize these things, that's when you get the basic idea what is the function of humanity and why we exist and what is our purpose. And from there, it's up to you what to do. And then there's different ways forwards. There's not a set way, there's different ways. There are going to be different religions, and all these people are saying, oh, I found out the way, this is the way to God, or how I'm going to do communion. You know, like the Catholic Church's communion, they've given it some invented meaning, but you can see the word, it means communicate and union with God. But of course, they've added the superstition communion of how you communicate or unite with God. Yes, and these things, there's many ways, many beautiful ways. And the thing is, people are fighting about it. And then soon, once you understand the 33rd degree, you get onto sacred geometry, and that's when you figure out it's not difficult. I don't know why they don't teach it in school. People should be able to learn this by the time they're 15 years old, but for no reason, they're not teaching this. Yeah,
Mhm.
1 hour a week in a class for 5 years is enough. And then people will able to figure out what is human function, and from there, it would actually end most of the major religious disputes and stop people's worries of why we're alive.
Mhm.
Yes, and that's what Jesus Christ was. He was a professor, a prophet, a
Mhm.
divine professor. And what they did was they went through serious science. People should go back in the video and see Euclid and his geometry. They applied that geometry to the 33rd degrees.
Mhm.
They applied it, and that's why people are so easily misled. Yes, it's because the people don't study the 33rd degrees. I mean, I'm shocked you can't find it online. I thought there would be a lot more about it. Yes, how the 19 becomes geometrically 33 in the third dimension. It's shocking. Yeah, I told you about this a few weeks ago. Have you checked online? You can't find this information. Did you check?
Well, no, but I believe you that you cannot find that information.
You can check, actually. I'm telling people to check. It's
Okay.
because I couldn't find anything. I checked so much. I thought, whoa, I can't
Mm.
believe this. I checked because somebody else said, hey, David, it's shocking what you wrote in your book. Yeah,
Mhm.
in 33 degrees. I thought maybe people did further research, but it's shocking that you can't find it. So
Mhm.
I tell people, go and check. So if you can't find it, it means that they're hiding it, or they put it, if it's there, they make sure it doesn't turn up in any search results or anywhere, or hardly anyone
Mhm.
knows about it. I mean,
Mhm.
there's just that one guy doing his video on just normal geometry. And the thing is many of his videos are good. I like his videos.
Mhm.
He tries to go through the facts in sacred geometry. And the thing is, where does that fit in with the Kabbalah? I explain it in the book Secrets of Kabbalah. And where does it fit in with 33 degrees? It's in this book. And the next book, which I hope next month or the month after, will explain how the sacred geometry is linked to humans.
Mhm.
Yes, that's another thing, and how it affects our world today. Okay, Nachiketa, I think that's enough said. But the evidence shows, Hinduism. Unfortunately, I wish the followers of Hinduism, I wish them good luck.
Mhm.
But what I can see, it's a totally invented religion. It's got nothing to do with God. Yes, the people are very good if they've been deceived. The people who deceive them, yeah,
Mhm.
they're the ones who we should be wishing bad luck to. And the people who don't know, it's just a question of education. Same like that Indian minister or politician said, I wanted people to focus on education. I wanted people to move forward. I didn't want the I didn't want people to come out of, poverty and then fall into worshipping statues and images of some, things that have been invented. He didn't want it either. Yeah,
Mhm.
the people. Yeah, and yeah, I doubt he didn't know it would happen. If he knew, yes, he wouldn't have done it. You
Right.
see, that shows that even the people who did the pictures, they didn't know it's going to be popular. Amongst the common people, then they didn't know. Yes, oh, let's do all the gods. It just happened as you went along. It's a business. You see,
Mm-hmm.
they went along with it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's leave it at that, Nachiketa, and we'll talk some other time.
All right. Well, thank you very much
Yes?
for your time, and I appreciate it. And I learned a lot today, and I will talk to you very soon.